is very much a part of what not just our business model needs to be, but our social model. Everything about the culture of our company needs to grow out of the culture that already exists with these aircraft. I think it is probably not uncommon to find people who are passionate about their aircraft. It maybe is a little less common to find people who are as encouraging to people about their new aircraft as they are about their older aircraft. I see, as I walk through the airport, looking at the aircraft, I see planes that were built as recently as, I think, the newest one I saw there was a 2004 model. But I just encourage you guys to embrace those folks, the folks that fly the new planes in here, because they're the ones that are going to support values on your planes, too. I think that's a good point. I should do that, too. People want us to deliver those airplanes. So the challenge with taking the time to build a building and then start building airplanes is that we can't start building airplanes until we finish that building. So we have kind of taken a sidestep now. We're in the process of leasing some other buildings. The large building on the airport there in Valdosta, which is about 40,000 square feet. Right now we've got about half of it leased. We're trying to get the other half of it leased so that we can start production hopefully within a couple of weeks. That is a long time coming. You know, we had originally anticipated that we would have our building built by the first of the year. That was before, shall we say, our little economic challenges in our national economy and our world economy, before fuel pricing did what it did. And we felt like that it was wise to kind of step back and take another look at the economic picture and the commitments that we were going to make as far as moving forward with the aircraft. We thought that the best thing we could do is to get the aircraft into production as quickly as possible, put planes into the hands of people that are ready to buy it. We do think probably within a few months to a year we'll go ahead and break ground on our new building, because ultimately that's where the best production efficiencies are going to come, is by being able to do everything in one building under one roof. But in the meantime, we're going to start putting planes in the sky. I think there are a lot of questions that I've had about what modifications, what changes are we going to make to the plane, why. I'm real hesitant to answer those because a lot of those questions are still questions that I have. The initial aircraft that we're going to build will be the same airplane that was being built in Martinsburg. Of course, to certify anything new rolling out the door, a lot of these guys can tell you what would be involved, and it would be probably months to years before we would be able to build an airplane and get it out the door if we started from the get-go trying to make a bunch of changes to the plane. One thing that we can do changes to is that we can make avionics changes. We can make some retro changes, as I call them. I've had a lot of people say that they maybe don't like the throttle quadrant, but prefer the push-pulls. That's one of those things that we intend to make available, make the aircraft available either way. The flight schools that I've talked to all want throttle quadrants because they want to be able to put the guys in the plane that's going to feel like the controls operate the way they would work in a more advanced aircraft, like a twin-engine plane or a jet plane, something like that. However, I find that a lot of the private owners who are flying in the plane not for an hour at a time, but for 3 or 4 hours at a time, get tired of hitting their knee on that quadrant. I don't know if any of you have planes with a quadrant. I've got a little sore spot right here from bumping my knee. So that's one of the things we're going to do a little differently. The other thing is we're not going to have just one model of airplane and you come in and this is your plane. We're going to let you spec the plane out and we'll price it accordingly. Everybody asks me for what does the plane cost, and I respectfully look back at them and say, well, that's up to you. And the price range on the aircraft is going to be starting at just above $200,000. We're actually trying to get it just under $200,000. I don't know if we'll be able to achieve that or not, but and then up to about $300,000 for a G1000 airplane with the synthetic vision and all the latest G-Wiz stuff in it. I know to a lot of you that bought a Tiger for $35,000, you go, man, would you ever think that? I remember when, well, I won't date myself, I won't say exactly when it was, but I remember the first time I saw a car that cost $100,000, and I thought, who would ever in this world buy a car that cost $100,000? And I remember the first time a Corvette cost more than $20,000. That was something I was passionate about growing up. And I thought one day maybe I'll have $20,000 and can buy a Corvette. And if you go out today, you look at what you can buy for $20,000 in a new car, and there's not much out there. Well, airplanes have done the same thing. And back in the 70s, when the planes were selling for the $30,000, $35,000, $40,000 price range, you could buy a house for that also. Well, a Tiger today is comparably priced with about, maybe accelerated a little bit from what the housing market has as it stands today. But if you go back and compare apples to apples and see how things are indexed, you see that the price really is not that staggering. But that said, I'd really like to just spend some time today with you guys giving me feedback and me answering questions for you if you've got some questions, or just us having some time to share, because what I'm interested in doing is building the plane that the market is going to want. And I know a lot of you guys have got your planes, and you're not necessarily who my customers are going to be, but you're the people that my customers are going to talk to. You're the people that, I know when I started looking for my first airplane, I started talking to everybody I knew that owned a plane and everybody I knew that flew a plane. I started interviewing them, saying, what can you tell me about this? At some point in the road, somebody told me, you ought to look at a Tiger. And probably most of you in here would say, at some point somebody said, you need to look at a Grumman. You need to think, it wasn't something that necessarily a flyer came in the mail to your house. It wasn't necessarily something where some guy at the airport wearing a shirt that said Grumman on it came over to you and said, come test fly my plane. But there was some friend, somebody in that circle of influence that came up to you and said, if you're looking for a plane, check this one out. For me, there were two different people. One of them was my flight instructor, and he carried a lot of weight. And he said, there's a plane right over here in the hangar that I'd like you to take a look at. It was a 70, it's Dr. Maratti's Tiger. It was a 78? Yeah, 78 Tiger. So I went and sat in Dr. Maratti's Tiger and thought, man, this feels good. This is neat. And then I was flying with one of my employers at the time into PDK in Atlanta. There was just a noise about PDK on Grumman Gang, about the dangers of flying in and out of there. But we were coming in, and this plane came flying out, going the opposite direction. I thought, man, that thing looks really good in the sky. That's a sexy plane. I turned to my employer and I said, what is that? He said, that's a Grumman Tiger. I said, what is that? I've been looking at Pipers and everything else. I said, what's that, about 110 knot plane? He said, 130 to 140 knots. I said, what's it got, 220 horsepower? He said, 180 horsepower. And I was just amazed because it didn't fit in the mold with everything else that I've been looking at in the market. And I think that's where you guys are important. One of the reasons that this organization is important to the effort that I'm putting forth. One of the reasons that the effort I'm putting forth is important to you, and you probably all know this already, is that number one, it is price support for your aircraft, but beyond price support, it's part support. And that's the other big question I get is what are you going to do to support the existing fleet? Well, my answer is yes. I don't know yet exactly what we will be able to do and how quickly we'll be able to do it, but the intention is to do everything that we can do as quickly as we can do it. I was talking with Ken Blackman a little while ago. A lot of the tooling and the stretch form molds and things for some of the original parts are gone. The company has been handed through enough hands that along the way they've either been misplaced or they've been sold off. That doesn't mean there's no hope for those parts. Our first priority is going to be to get the Tiger in production. But one of the things that I constantly hear about is the need for cowlings for the two-place planes, cowlings for the earlier Tigers, the Cheetahs, the Travelers, all of those planes. And we would like to, as soon as we can see ourselves clear to do it, to come back and address some of those issues, whether it be coming back with a composite cowling that we can work off, we can make some tooling off of an existing cowl, or whether it be redesigning something. And a lot of that will be shaped by the people in this room, by the feedback that you guys give us to let us know, do you need a cowl, or are you interested in a cowl? How would you feel about a graphite composite or a fiberglass or something like that? So I guess I would like to just take a minute and maybe let some of you guys ask me some questions. Tell me what are your concerns, or what are your thoughts about the venture? What things you would change about the aircraft? what things you would not want to see changed? Do I need this?
No.
Is this doing anything?
It was, but it's not now.
Is it? It got it? Okay. It's okay, I'm a lot more comfortable without it anyway. But I am intensely curious, and I'm curious because I want this business to succeed, and I need this business to succeed, and I feel like you people have the answers to its success. You are the people that have seen the value in the product. You've seen you know how to make the product last. So tell me, I mean, Graham, tell me something that you would do different on the aircraft.
I think I'd put an IO 360 in front.
Fuel injected. Okay. Are you talking about with a constant speed prop?
That would be nice too, yeah. More power, more speed.
Is it worth trading 30 pounds of useful load for the constant speed prop?
Absolutely.
Okay. Do most of you fly your 4-place planes with 2 people?
Yeah. And luggage.
So, and luggage. So the 30 pounds would not kill you?
Right.
Okay.
Climb performance would be a big issue, you know, definitely a big issue.
Okay. Yes.
The reason I like it is people that don't fly that often can fly. That's why I don't particularly want to constant speed prop because it's so simple. It's is lower, and anybody can pretty much get in it and fly, and they don't have to determine know anything about constant speed prop. And that's why we still like it. My wife flies maybe 30 hours a year or so, and she's comfortable flying that, and she wouldn't do it constant speed prop. So that's my opinion.
I've got another case in point for you that matches up with that. My wife is also a pilot. She trained in our Tiger. She soloed in, I think, 8 hours in the Tiger. It took me 12 hours in the 150 to solo. And I'm the mechanical one in our family. I'm the one who, I mean, she'll readily admit I'm the one who would normally have more tactical skill than she would have. So she's proof in the pudding that the Tiger is a good plane to train in. Also, along the same lines of what you were saying, a lot of you know I had a Mooney that I got rid of just before I bought this company. Actually, in the process of getting the company, didn't seem quite right to be flying around in a Mooney to look at a Tiger company, did it? Actually, in my defense, I got that because I needed a complex aircraft to work on some ratings. But that being said, I happened to own that Mooney when this little thing called a prop AD got rolled out on it. And the last annual that I did on that plane, and we took care of that prop AD, I got to spend $12,000 on a new hub and blades and prop assembly for that Mooney. Now that was a significant amount of the value of that airplane, and it made me think. I see, what was that Tiger prop, $3,000 if you replaced the whole thing? I mean, it really did kind of buckle my knees when I looked at what I was spending. So the constant speed prop was nice. I think one of the other options that's been shown is the electric prop, and I know there's some pricing issues with electric prop. Probably, maybe not if we do it from the factory. So that's something that we're looking at as an option for the aircraft.
When you say that you'd like to be able to, the customer would say what equipment is on it. Now, putting something like the power flow on it that's already STC'd, is that something that you would consider at the factory as part of the initial order?
It is. The way we would do that is that would have to be done on a 337 or STC installation. We would build the aircraft with the standard exhaust system on it. We would certify it, and then we would take it to the repair station, and we would install the power flow system on it. That's just a matter of technicalities. The net effect of the customer, it would be seamless. They would never know how that was done, except when they got their package of logbooks. There would be some documentation that they are taking off the original exhaust and install the power flow. So what that would do to the customer, for the customer though, is allow them not to have the expense of being stuck with the stock exhaust system when they get power flow. So it would be a net gain to the customer.
And similar thing would be put an empty prop on, similar thing.
That's right. That's right. That's why the empty prop would be less expensive on a new airplane, figuratively speaking. Yes.
Yes, constant speed prop or otherwise. It seems to me that carburetors are 1950s, 1960s technology. And whether you go to a constant speed prop or not, and whether you go to a 180 or a 200 horsepower O360, IO360, it should be a fuel injected engine.
I agree. I'll tell you something, I'll give you one better, and I will say that it's probably even the fuel-injected engines are 1950s technology. In fact, the 1950s cars had better fuel-injected systems on it than they're putting on the airplanes now. The reason they use the system they do on the aircraft, though, is because it's so simple and it very rarely fails. Or so they tell us.
I'm worried about the availability of low lead. Is there any possibility we might be able to get an engine that runs without it?
Yes.
What's the question?
Okay, yeah, the question was the availability of 100 low lead, the possibility of getting something done to have something other than 100 low lead available as a fuel. Lycoming has announced already that they are going to be certifying the O360 and the IO360 for premium pump gas. That's a big change in direction for them because most of you know for years they've said we won't honor your warranty if you run auto gas in your engine. So you've had the choice of either, if you buy the STC, then you're going to walk away from the warranty on the engine. What we have committed to do with the new Tiger is, as soon as Lycoming has that certification for their engine and they've approved it for the engine, we are going to approve it for the new Tigers. We also intend to put together a service kit that can be used retroactively on the existing fleet. I know there's been a lot of talk about getting STC for auto fuel in the Tigers. There are undoubtedly going to be some challenges. There may take some reconfiguration of the firewall and moving the fuel pumps and doing some different things. We'll have to sort through that and see what it takes to get it done. But we have, at least within the company, made the internal commitment to get that done. It just makes sense to kind of hedge our bets against the unavailability of 100 low lead.
What about ethanol in the auto fuel?
Ethanol, yeah, that's something that's going to have to be addressed by bigger powers than me. It would not surprise me to see the ethanol requirement go away, just because of what we've seen happen in the market by mandating ethanol and gas. We've shot the cost of corn now is what, $8 a bushel.
People in Iowa really like that.
They do. They do.
If you're here, you're close to your money now.
That's right. That's right.
It's even affecting the beer industry.
That's right.
No.
So now it's getting everybody. Now it's getting everybody. So now, all I could do is speculate on that, and speculation is not a good term these days, I know.
All hop farmers are turning corn.
So what you're saying is that you're not going to look at doing anything with an ethanol-based or an alcohol-based fuel.
What we will do will be based on what Lycoming does.
Okay.
If Lycoming says it's got to be premium pump gas with no alcohol in it, then that's what our system will be. And right now we've actually got some test beakers back at our facility where we're testing the sealant with all kinds of different fuels to see what kind of breakdown we get if we have any problem with the sealant. There's all kind of, I get reports that it does no harm. I get reports that it does terrible things. I wanted to see for myself. The fuel sealant that we use now in the Tiger is essentially the same fuel sealant that anybody who builds an RV uses to seal their tanks. A lot of these people that are running pump gas in their airplanes, MoGas in their planes, are using the same fuel sealant without any problem. So I don't see why it would be a problem in our plane, but we're going to make sure before we try to put a blessing on it. Yes?
I just had a question, not for the new Tigers, but is the current Tiger, or the new Tigers certified for 93 unlead?
No, it is not. And back to your fuel injection question, we very much would like to have a fuel injected engine in the plane. At this point in time, we are not moving forward with that project. What we're looking at, I don't want to change the engine just to make that one change. What we're looking for when we go to a fuel injected engine will be a larger change to the aircraft with also some drag reductions and some other things that go into the plane to not only improve that standpoint, but also have some performance thing also. And because certifying the engine is such a large project in and of itself, for it to be cost effective, we also need to tie that into some other
It
certifications.
is a big project, even though it's the same engine.
Yeah, because it's not. Yeah, I wish it were that simple. I wish, because I have asked that same question to the FAA. It's not the same engine, it's a different engine. The whole fuel system is different. Everything that touches the engine is
Tell them
different.
about the carburetor.
What?
The carburetor.
The carburetor scared it.
I mean, my experience with the carburetor answered that question.
Right. Oh, that's right. Here's a great example. The AG Tigers are built with the same carburetor as the earlier Tigers, except that one jet is changed in the carburetor. So it has a different part number. And Graham just bought a engine from us that was built for an AG to go into his AA5 Tiger. And we actually had to enlist the help of 3 or 4 different shops, specialist shops across the country to get the right carburetor, even though we had this brand new carburetor. It's built for a Tiger, built same engine, an identical engine. But because it wasn't on the paperwork, when they updated the AG plane from the AA5B to the AG5B, they did not happen to put in the amended type certificate, when they mentioned the carburetor, they left off AA5B. And so because that was not on the type certificate, for that aircraft to technically be legal, it had to be done. We had to change the carburetor. So we've got a brand new carburetor sitting on our shop, and we had to take Graham's carburetor and get it overhauled to be able to get him back in the air. Ron?
The 200 horsepower constant speed prop IO360, of course, is already STC with the hyper package. Have you talked with Scott Jernigan about taking on that package?
I emailed Scott some time ago. The impression I got was, I don't know how much specifics I need to go into with what was
He's been a little frustrated by the project.
That's a good way to say it. That's a good way to say it. And I wouldn't disagree with that. I sense a lot of frustration with the project. I think the challenge that we run into there is it goes back to the same thing as what I said a minute ago. I want to tie the changing of the engine into some other improvements to the airframe. And I want to be careful. Again, I don't want to be one of those guys that makes promises, we're going to do this and we're going to do that and we're blah, 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 and then it never happens. So I'm trying to be real careful about a lot of the things that I'm excited about in the back of my head that I'm trying not to let slip out of my mouth. So long story short, that may be a shorter path to where we want to go. But for us to be able to use that STC, we would have to take all that data and still run it back through the FAA and incorporate that data into the type certificate and run all the testing again and essentially, from what it sounded like, redraw most of the drawings, re-engineer a lot of what's being done. And I know he spent a lot of time, and Bob spent a lot of time trying to upgrade, doing those very same things. It sounds like there's still a long way to go on it. That's what it sounded like.
While we're talking about engines, is FADEC a possibility?
FADEC is a possibility. It's not a likelihood in the short run. And that's where it goes back to fuel injection and the injection. I would love to see FADEC in one of our aircraft, and we will before too long. It's still kind of a immature technology. There are people that are building a lot of planes with it, and every now and then you hear about just something really weird happening that shouldn't happen. Like they raise the landing gear and both engines shut off. Yeah, that's right. Feathers and props.
If they hadn't violated the manual, it wouldn't happen.
That's right. That's right. But as we all know, people violate the manual. Unfortunately,
Well, I did have to do a top overhaul because the first owner ran it too lean, and the valves were kind of napping down.
Yeah. So I would like to see the FADEC technology get a little further down the road before we jump on the bandwagon. I'm not opposed to it. I love the newer technology. I think it's a crying shame that we can hop in a Toyota Corolla and turn the key and it fires up and is ready to go, but we can't do that in a $300,000 airplane. And we're still over here pushing primers. And
You don't sell them anything either.
that's right, if we sold that many. I'll get you in just a second.
Two questions, actually. The one is, has any thought been put into possibly putting either ground adjustable or in-flight adjustable cowl flaps?
The question was about cow flaps to improve cooling. I assume that's why we...
Yes.
Yeah. On the Tiger, I want to stay away from that, just because I'm trying very hard not to make the Tiger less of a Tiger. And one of the things that we've touched on already and mentioned is the simplicity of the Tiger is the beauty of it. That it will do as much as it will do with the simple systems that it has. I know there are people that make kits for adjustable cowl flaps. I know there are some modifications. That's one of the things, again, we go back to fuel injected engine, and you're making me let a little bit more cat out of the bag here maybe. But the idea is to redesign the airflow through the cowl and to reduce cooling drag and to improve cooling. I think we've got some issues, and I think everybody in this room knows this probably as well or better than I do, that we've got some issues with what's going on with the air once it gets inside that cowl. And it does need a better way to get out. It needs smoother flow through the internal parts of the cowl. Ken and I were talking about that earlier too, with when we were out on the flight line, that you have one little leak inside there somewhere, and you open the cowl, and here's oil scattered all over the place. And I think the guy, you were out there, we were looking at your plane, and not that he has oil scattered all over the place. He's going to throw something at me here. But it's very turbulent inside the cowl right now. And I think the cure to that on the new aircraft is to look at how the air is actually flowing. There's a lot of things we can look at now that we couldn't look at, or they couldn't look at when they were designing. But now we've got a good engineer on staff who is in the process of doing 3D modeling on how all that takes place. And once we get a little further down the road with that, we'll be able to say, without even having to do a lot of testing on the airplane itself, get us in the ballpark and then start narrowing down, okay, then we go build this and let's try it and see if it'll work. We are still very much in the infancy stage of getting that done. You've been very patient. Yes.
What about possibly later on working towards the more economical side of 320
Building a 320 Cheetah again? I don't want to say we're not interested in doing that. One of the things that, and the best argument that I heard for it, and I don't know how strong an argument this is that for the European market in particular, was it 1,000 kilograms is the cutoff point for, is the break point on landing fees there. And so for a flight school who's paying thousands of dollars a year in landing fees, if they could have that aircraft below that weight limitation, then it would save them money versus buying the Tiger. And if they're using
1,000 kilograms is 2246 pounds.
2246. Okay. I just know that
Cheetah is 2200.
So it comes in just under the wire to work for that. I'm certainly not opposed to building the Cheetah if people order them. It costs just as much to build a Cheetah as it does to build a Tiger. So that being said, you know, my suggestion would be, except in the case where you've got something legislatively, something legally, that there's an advantage to the lighter aircraft, you're just as well off for the same money to have the higher powered plane and cut the throttle back if you can bring yourself to do it. Why do y'all laugh when I say that? You don't all fly around at 2,200 RPMs? Yes, sir.
I learned today that the Garmin 1000 has a certain heavy weight. So if you bring the Garmin 1000 into the Tiger, will that change the weight calculation for the aircraft?
Yeah, the G1000 is already certified for the Tiger, and it does make a heavier plane. It's about 35 pounds heavier. Most of that is because there has to be a second battery in the plane.
Yeah.
most of the manufacturers, well, let's don't say most, but a lot of the manufacturers who have installed the G1000 have typically put in the standard full-size battery, and then they put in a little backup battery. At Tiger, they decided not to go that route. They put in 2 full-size batteries. Now, I just found out that the guys who were building with the little partial batteries are now coming back and putting in the full-size batteries because they're finding that the little backup battery doesn't do the job. So it sounds like, even though Tiger kind of bit the bullet on eating that extra weight to start with, they're going to wind up looking like they were smart to start. It all comes back around. But you're right. I mean, the G1000 is the heaviest. It's the heaviest Tiger that has been built, and part of that is because of the weight of what's in the panel itself. But also, you've got the magnetometer that's out in the wing that adds weight there, and there are 3 or 4 other components that go in the aircraft. It's a really neat system. It's a powerful system, but it is by nature the fact that it has to be so redundant. It causes a lot of some extra weight to get in.
Would it be the next generation like Cirrus is doing that with the Dami 1000? They're changing just now to the Dami 1000 Cirrus. Would it be the same configuration?
It is. It is. Yeah. In fact, the first certification project that we're working on, we're already writing the certification documents on it. They're already that thick, so that means we're probably halfway. But that will be to certify the synthetic vision on the G1000 system in the aircraft, the WASP certification. We'll also be adding with the G1000 what it did not have on it in Martinsburg, did not have fuel flow built into it, did not have a manifold pressure gauge on it. They left off quite a few of the things that the system was capable of doing, but they just didn't add it in because the stock Tiger didn't have that in it. I think to me it doesn't make sense if you're paying the weight penalty to have all that G-Wiz stuff. You ought to have the G-Wiz stuff. If we could put if we put a pressure sensor on there to get our manifold pressure and tie it into our fuel flow, then we can pick up, first of all, fuel, the fuel that we have left en route, that's tied right in. We have percentage of power calculation done for us. We have a lot of extra functionality that comes in by adding those things.
Boy, he's excited.
We're trying to find a unit that is efficient enough that can be removed or installed easily. It would be something that would slide into the back baggage compartment, be an electric unit, would not have a compressor, an engine-driven compressor. There are several out there in the market. They're extremely expensive, so what we're trying to find is something that would be a compromise and would allow you, when you can spare the extra 50 pounds that the system's going to weigh, that you can take that air conditioning system with you, and it will cool the aircraft and pre-cool the plane before you get in it. Usually, once you get up to altitude, you're not going to need to run it, so we figure it needs to be able to run off its own power while you're on the ground, and then charge the battery while you're in flight, and then again run on the ground. This is very early in looking at that. It's mostly at this point been narrowed to me looking at different things that I could find that were available on the internet and calling those manufacturers and talking to them and seeing what kind of applications it would have for us. But it is something that we very much want to have. We have some interest from some customers in the Middle East that will buy the plane only if it has air conditioning in it. So I want to be able to do as much for everybody as I can, but particularly my wife wants to have air conditioning in it.
Oh, yeah.
So that settles it. Most of the time it doesn't matter. We love flying with the canopy back, but on those days when it's muggy or it's just light drizzle or whatever reason, if you're running around the pattern at low altitude and for whatever reason you can't slide the canopy back, it would be nice to be able to flip that switch and not sweat it out. When our planes were designed, a lot of cars didn't have air conditioning in them. We don't find that much anymore, do we? No. So it's time to try to catch up there.
How about something simpler like replacing those little air vents in the instrument panel that always break with something more sturdy?
You don't like those?
Replace them twice.
I had some of those same vents in my '73 Chevette. You're going to hurt my feelings now. No. Yes, we're currently looking at different options for those air vents, something that's more directional, something that is, it's more.
Like those ones on display here today?
Yeah, something like that. I think there's a lot that can be done to improve in that area, just to improve in the existing ventilation. The biggest thing is that for me, it's an aesthetic thing as much as it is a functionality thing. It just isn't very pleasing to see those old square. You want something to twist.
Yeah, somebody designed one that was at the last convention and asked people to sign up.
With the twin eyeball valves.
Yeah, but he's not here now.
That's John.
They're improved. I've got them here, I'll sell you one.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, that's an amazing technology.
Yeah.
John sent the folks that actually manufacture those down to see us, and they actually have a machine that turns powder into those parts that you see using a laser, builds them from the inside out. It's just incredible, like a photocopier that makes parts.
3D photocopier.
3D copier.
How about
What-
marketing?
Sorry.
Marketing, you're going to sell out the back door, like lawnmowers, or you're going to sell it through a computer organization?
Well, the marketing organization right now, at this point in time, we have one commitment, one dealer. That's Herb Portman Aviation up in Pennsylvania. He's been selling the aircraft. Most of you know his name since the aircraft was in existence, or his family has. He has a Grumman-based flight school. Uses, I think, 22 Grummans in his flight training. Has a very big program up there. It's a big supporter of the project. We haven't only committed to him because, for any particular reason other than that, he's the person who stepped forward with purchase orders and said, I'm ready to buy airplanes. He is, I think, a great advocate for the aircraft. He went with us down to the Embry-Riddle flight training symposium that they have every year. Spoke to them about his flight school and the virtues of using the Grumman aircraft, explained to them in unequivocal terms how the Grumman cost 14% less to operate than his Pipers or his Cessnas. That's something they all perked up and listened to. Somebody with that kind of experience was good to take down there with us. But we do intend to have other dealers. The model that we're looking at right now is to have several regional dealers, and then each of those regional dealers would have sub-dealerships that they help market, they help to roll the aircraft out there. I don't want somebody to feel like they have to have a huge flight school and a huge airfield and a huge commitment to be able to market our aircraft. But I also want to be sure that the people that market our aircraft are capable of standing behind them. And so that's where partnering with a regional distributor and then a smaller distributor can have some synergies there. We are going to require all our dealerships to have mechanics that come to our school and learn the particulars about maintaining the aircraft, things that are peculiar to the Grumman line. We're going to require that our regional distributors all have flight schools and use a plane in their flight schools. And then the sub-dealers will have a little lighter flight. There will not be a large requirement for stocking of parts because of the day of overnight delivery. There's not the need for that there was, say, 25 years ago, when if you had to order it, it took 6 or 7 days to get there. There will be some things that we ask them to stock, but not nothing like not a huge inventory. I don't know how I'm doing on time here. Yes, ma'am.
When will you have the Trueflight logo on a tire on cafepress.com? People to order.
I don't know. I thought you were doing that.
Yeah. We can do it this afternoon if you'd like.
Okay. We can't we?
We can.
It literally is that fast?
Yeah, Cafe Press will do it for you. You don't have to do anything.
Okay. Well, let's do it. Cafepress.com.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I would love to do that. That is one of those things that's on my list of things to do, along with getting the new website up, getting the, and some of you've noticed our website changes a little bit every 4 or 5 days, and it's in a state of flux right now. We're trying to get it tweaked a little bit, and maybe it would have been nice if we could have done all the tweaking before we went live with it, but I felt like it was time to get something besides just 2 press releases up on the website. So we at least wanted some pictures of some airplanes on there. So, that will be getting better.
When are you planning to roll out your first aircraft?
The million-dollar question. When are we going to roll out the first aircraft? Well, first we have to start building it. I think realistically, 6 months after we start building it, we can roll it out. Our goal is to build 3 planes by the end of the year. Now, that's extremely ambitious. I don't stand here with it's something I very much want to do. It's something we're going to press very hard to do. But it is a plan that is, our goals are set in stone. Our plans are written in sand. And we're going to do everything we can to make that happen. We've got enough planes sold now that we're selling delivery positions in the third quarter of 2009. So it's time to be building planes.
Right here with the bracelet line, taking so long to dig the dirt.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing Dave was aware of. We went through some really painful things with the FAA that had nothing to do with aircraft. They had to do with building on an airport. Had nothing to do with the MIDO or the FISDO or any of those guys. When we got approval for our site at Valdosta Airport, the runway there was about 6,500 feet long. Well, between the time when we got our approval and the time that we called them to say we're ready to start building, they underwent an airport improvement project, and we now have an 8,002-foot long runway. Wonderful. But the FAA looks at it and goes, now wait a minute, we didn't approve you to build on this site. This goes back to the whole thing about it's the same engine. It's the same site instead. But anyway, we had to go back through the entire process again of getting our site approved because we were on the ILS end of the approach runway. The ILS approach end of the runway. Lengthening the runway actually put us further outside of the protection zone. But that didn't seem to matter to them. So we spent five and a half months sending letters back and forth to the FAA, trying to get them to understand that it didn't matter. And actually probably spent 2 months trying to get them to understand that it didn't matter. After 2 months, we gave up trying to get them to understand that it didn't matter. And just started complying with, okay, here's our plan, and we went back through the approval process. Well, looking back on it, that may have been divine intervention, because had we started building that at that point in time, we would have committed a lot of resources right when the economy was about to tank. So it could very well be to our advantage that we have now not spent all that money building the building yet, and instead we're pouring that money into getting production going. And in the long run for the company, it may work out better for us. So we haven't decided not to build a new building, but we decided that we're going to give it at least 6 months. We're going to wait at least till the first of next year to decide when we're going to build that building. But we still have the lease, we still have the building design. It's all ready to go. We still have the approvals on it. One of the other things that slowed us down was, of course, when the FAA said you can't build right now, all those contractors that we had lined up went and worked on other jobs. And then when we called them back after we got the approval, they said, well, we're working on other jobs, and by the way, we've got to re-quote those jobs now because the cost of steel's gone up, and the cost of electrical components has gone up, and the cost of concrete's gone up, and the cost of... So anyway, not to belabor the point, we postponed that. Yes, sir.
Will you have resources for us to come to you and get an annual planning shot?
Yes, absolutely. We have, the question was, do we have resources for people to come and get their annual done and that kind of thing? We intend, and we're already in the process. We've done several annuals for people. We've done, for example, for Graham, we've changed his engine out and did his annual for him. We're actively working on the existing fleet already. One thing that works out pretty well is that they're, even with the two-place aircraft, probably, I guess, 300 to 400 pieces of the things that are proprietary Grumman are the same on the AGs as they are in the rest of the fleet. So there's a lot of stuff that we have in stock for the AGs that works on the existing fleet. We are also in process of getting our repair station license. When we first applied for it, we were number 14 on the list. We're up, I think, at this point to number 11 or 12. It's taken a year for it to move that far. So right now, Lloyd Montague, who is, a lot of you know his name, most of you know his name. Lloyd's been associated with the Tiger since, I guess, the late 80s. Lloyd is our chief operating officer and is also our A&P. He's got his DAR certification now. He's our resident guru and is in process of training people and doing maintenance on the aircraft. I don't see our shop being the shop necessarily that you're going to bring your plane to every year for annual. I think probably a lot of the guys in the room that are gurus will tell you that they see some of the planes they see every year, some of them they see every other year, they see them every third year. But you know, it's kind of like any other brand of aircraft. You want a specialist in your aircraft to look at that plane periodically, even if you let your local guy do your annual on the ongoing basis. So anyway, yes.
Do you report to even fabricating any parts, or are you just working from existing stock parts?
We are working from existing stock parts right now. As far as fabricating parts, in West Virginia, when they were building the planes up there, they fabricated very few parts in-house. Most of the parts were outsourced. While we get started, we will continue that. It is our plan to start bringing those processes in-house as we get production up and running. What we've started doing already is looking at, okay, if we buy this piece of equipment that has these capabilities, what parts can we build with it, and can we build those parts as economically as we can buy those parts? In some cases, it doesn't make sense. For example, the center spar, the carry-through spar. It takes a tremendous press to put the dihedral in that spar. That's the only thing on the aircraft you would use that press to build. So it doesn't make sense for us to do that. Some other things, some flat parts that we could buy one CNC router and build, literally 100 different parts with it, then that makes sense for us to do, and we'll bring that in-house much sooner. Right here, Green? Yes, sir.
You mentioned earthworm and displaceable when I was talking about building planners. What see this for duplexing? And maybe you decide to do it, instead of putting hopefully one instead of
Okay, the question was, what's going to be the fate of the two-place aircraft, and when we look at putting the 0320 in it from the factory? That is a question probably to be decided a year or so down the road from here. I have had people approach me about buying the tooling for the two-place plane and the type certificate for the plane, but I don't want to part with it. It's part of the family. I don't mind telling you that one of the groups was a group out of China, and they would love to take that to China and build those aircraft there. And pardon?
Would buy one then.
Right. Well, that's I guess that's part of the challenge. But that's another thing. I guess Ken, we covered a lot today, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Ken and I were talking about different options for the two-place airframe, and I think there are certainly some good options for it. It costs about as much to build a two-place plane as it does a Tiger. So again, we've got some economic issues to figure out on it, and to do some analysis on whether or not it is marketable at what we can afford to build it for. But I would love personally nothing more than to see us building two-place also. Garner?
Kevin, now that you've got first-hand experience with how easy it is to work with the FAA, have you thought about possibly either put a two-place or a four-place to do a kit form aircraft and let them do their own certification?
I would love to do a kit. I've kind of been waiting to see what the new ruling, they're working on a new ruling right now on the 51% rule to see what represents a kit, what's a legitimate kit, and what isn't. The reason I would love to do a kit, and again, this goes back to the fact that I'm one of you guys, is that, I started in 1980, it was anyway, I don't know, with my 79 Tiger, started refurbishing it. We took the wings off of it, we took it apart, we tore it down basically to components and started coming back together with it. And I thought, it would be nice to do this. And the A&P worked with me, no, you can't do that, that's not certified. Well, I saw it on this plane, well, no, that's not a certified plane, you can't have it, you can't do it. And there are a lot of things that are out there, and just so from a personal, I guess, roll up the sleeves, hot rodding kind of guy that I am, I would very much like to be able to see some tigers out there, or some cheetahs, or some, whatever it might be, built from a kit. We've got to wait and see though. It's not practical probably for most people to build a set of bond fixtures. It's not practical for, so there'd be a certain amount of it that we would have to do in-house, for the kit. And so the question would be, can we do enough of it for the people who have good success building the plane without doing too much of it to the point that the FAA would not allow, would not sign it off. Oh, okay, time is just about up. I'll come right back to you.
Is the two-place frame suitable that it could become a light sport?
The two-place airframe is a stout lady. She's strong. She's beefy. It would take a significant weight savings. Ken, you can speak to this better than I could, but it'd be really tough to shave enough weight off the plane to be able to get it to do that.
You couldn't logically do it with the existing spar and landing gear system.
Right.
We looked at ways of doing it using other types of things, maybe the spar, but different landing gear, and any way you look at it, it's like, man, it's going to be so on the edge.
Dick, let me get his question because he's been patient. And then
How many orders do you have, and how many ever individual licenses?
okay, right now what we've got is, I believe, 12. We're selling position number 12 is available now. The first 8 aircraft are sold through Hortman Aviation. He went down to Sun and Fun with us and had great success there. The other 4 are to individuals. So I think that's pretty good for just the fish that jumped in the boat. We went down to Sun and Fun, didn't even have any contracts for people to sign.
We got it. I know you all would like to ask questions, and maybe
I'll be around.
He'll be around for your questions, but progress must go on. How about a big hand?